Hi, in this video I'm gonna give you step by step how to work with BPT in Outsystems, show you the details and what you can do in your applications. And if you are new here, so please subscribe to the channel and give a comment if you enjoyed the video, this tutorial, okay? And so let's start here to create the this tutorial. Okay, so in the Service Studio, in order to work with BPT, you need to create an application first. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to use reactive. You can use traditional if you want. Okay, so I'm going to give here processes is the name of the application. So here, to best practices regarding the Outsystems, what we need to set the name of the module is something like the name that you want here on the left on the prefix, and after that you should use the sync as suffix because this is regarding synchronization. Okay, so is the naming convention that Outsystems tells us to do, just to right away understand what the module should have inside, like processes or timers. Okay, so that's why we do this. Another important thing here is the module type. So if you use the reactive web app, you're going to have the 4 tabs. So the processes, interface, logic, and data. And he will come with a lot of elements that we don't need. Okay. The blank one, it also have the 4 modules as well, but it doesn't come with several elements. Okay. And it's not a front-end module. It's the only front-end is the reactive web app. Okay, it doesn't work the same way. Also, we have service, but the service for this part, it's only for automatic things. Okay, but we're going to use human activities. If we use this, we're not going to have that element in the process. Okay, but I can show you very quickly. But let's start with the blank. So let's create the blank module. So as we can see, we have the 4 tabs here. And if you go here to the process, we can see that we have all elements for processes, also the human activity. But if we create a service, so let's create a service and let's create a module just to see the difference. Okay, this is important. And if you go back here in the process, and we do not have the tab interface, as we can see, we do not have the human activity because this is supposed just to be autonomous. So we don't have any interaction here. Okay. But for this tutorial, I'm going to show you also how to work with human activities. So service module, it's not the one that we want. Okay, so let's come back here in our processes sync. So after that, we can create the process. And as we can see, we have all elements. And let's set here like onboarding client. So let's have here a test case. Okay. And so let's start with human activity. So like, so let's say client onboarding. So let's say that in this step, the client fills his information, okay, like a form. So we're going to have here the client onboarding. That's fine. After that, we need to have, so let's say validate onboarding information. Okay, so always give the description just to understand what it does or what's supposed to happen here. So validates, so I forget to, yeah, validates onboarding client info. Okay. After that, we need to check if it is okay or not. Okay, so let's set here like client info. Okay. Here, yeah. So checks the client info if it is okay. Okay, so if it is okay, so let's do like this. So if it is okay, yeah, if it is okay, we continue. If it is not, we need to go back to the client onboarding. Okay. So the human activity, what it does is he waits on the process until something is done in order to close this activity. Okay, that's what the human activity does. So the client fills his information. After that, we validate the onboarding info. So if it is okay. And after that, we need to set if it is okay or if it is not. Okay. So regarding the decision, a decision is like a way to have multiple possibilities, multiple ramifications on something that we need to do. So imagine that when we want to validate, it can happen like 3 outcomes. Okay. In this case, we're just gonna have 2. So if it is okay or if it is not. But in some cases, this is not the case. We have more options that can happen. Okay. So in terms of updating a status on a process, or calling some API, or running different logic. Okay, so that depends. So inside here we have our logic. Okay, so in here we're just gonna say that so let's change this in like info. Okay, if info okay, we go to true, and also we can change the outcome here. If it's okay, we go to true, and the outcome is yes, and the outcome is this. Okay, if not, we go to false, and the outcome is no, because we can change this. We can go here to yes. Do you see? We can have this. So let me go back. Yeah. Okay, so it's fine here. So after this, so if it is okay, let's so let's update the case. Okay, so let's do that. So let's update the case. Okay, so update status onboarding case. Okay, and here we're going to add a logic. This is like a server action. Okay, also the decision, it's the same. Human activity doesn't have, because it's different. It's not in terms of the logic, but it depends on a user intervention on the application. So after that, we update the case. Okay, so after that, let's say that we give information we give information to the manager. So send manager onboarding. Okay. Or no, wait. So manager onboarding answer. So let's say it like this. Or manager onboarding, let's say validation, but it's kind of different validation. It's just to, or it's like, let's see, so manager onboarding. So let's say, just to give his a signature. So it's like, so signature. Let's say like this. Just to him to know that it was approved here. So if it was approved. Also we can change here. So let's say, I think we can change this. Yeah. So let's say here approved. Okay. You also can change the ramification. Also here, I'm gonna set here rejected. Okay. And also we need to add the rejection here. So update status onboarding rejected. And here we're gonna set as approved. Okay. And also we can add a new automatic activity here. I forgot to mention this. I'm sorry. So let's say, so here filled in. So when the client fill his information on the form, we update it to filled in. This is something that we're going to create further, not now. Right now we are just creating our process, and in later you can have slightly changes. Okay, this happens in the applications. We need to change the process, but now it's okay. So we have the case filled in, we validate, it can be approved or it can be rejected. Okay, sounds okay to me. So after that, we let the manager know that it is okay. So he has to put his signature. So this is just a test case, but it seems that this might happen in an application. So after that, we have the signature, and let's say we can create a new process. Okay, so just to have all things here. So let's create a new process here. Okay, so let's give here like the final validation. Okay, and in here we need the approval from, let me add the comment here. So need approval after the manager, we need approval from partner and CEO. Okay, so what we can do, we can use a wait, and when we create a wait, we have three things. So we have close on in the properties, which works as a trigger if a CRUD action runs. So imagine that we have a table here which is client, and we're going to have the create user or update user. Okay, this is the CRUD actions from the table. If something, if we have a logic that runs this, okay, so let's say update user. If we do this, when the update user runs, he will end the wait. He will close this. Okay, this is one way to do. I'm not gonna use this way. Also, you have the timeout. So the timeout works as so he will wait until the timeout or the validation that we have here, or the value, it's correspondent. Okay, so that so think like if I set like a variable here, which is the current day, and if I say like the timeout, it will be that value plus one more day, which will be tomorrow. When that happens, he will close the wait, so he will move on after that. If not, he will be stuck here and waiting for that happen. Make sense? Okay. But you have a third option, and the third option is what we have underneath here, the wait, which is the close. And if we expand the close, we have the activity ID and also the next human activity ID. Okay. So what we can do is take control of this. So we're going only to close this wait after we have the partner approval and only after we have the CEO approval. Okay. So right now I'm just gonna set here like this. So let's say partner and CEO approval. Let's end like waiting. Okay. But right now I'm just keep like it is. I'm not gonna add more complexity or logic here, but after that we're going to close this, okay, only after these two approvals. Okay, so let's just move on. Okay, so after this we need to update the status. So let's say all approved, or let's say done. Update status done onboarding, so it is finished. Okay, and now what we need to do is to grab this process and put it in here. Okay, but now you might think, so why we cannot create this in here? Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. So when we do this, so we can create processes depending on two things. So if this is like a common logic, a common piece of a process, and if we have multiple processes here, we can just grab this and drag and drop here because it happens multiple times. Okay, it's like a block. You want to replicate that logic in many screens or many blocks. Okay, or imagine that we have a big process here and we do not get things complicated to read, so we create a different process. So that's the two main reasons that we create this. Also, we are creating this not because of that, but because of the tutorial, and just gonna show you, just to show you how this works. Okay, so far we worked with the human activity, automatic activity, use execute process, wait, and decision. Okay, also it's very important to add comments on what is happening. Okay, don't forget that. And also we have the conditional start. Okay, so the conditional start, it works like this. So we can drag and drop this. It's like it is a conditional start. And the conditional start, we also have a function here, a logic that we run independently on what happens here in the process. We can just trigger this in a logic that we create in a server action. Or we can use the start on, which is the same thing that we have for the close on the wait. So if we expand this, we can also use the CRUD create or update from the tables that we have. Okay. So in here, we can, let's say, use the start on, okay, just to make things differently from the wait. But just to end this, this flow, let's say that if we have, if something triggers this, so let's say like so let's say that client or yeah, right now I don't have any idea how to use this, but let's say that the client gives up and he doesn't want to proceed. So client gives up, I don't know, gives up the proposal. Okay. So if this happens, we're going to update the status to give up. Okay. Or turn it down. Okay. But you get the picture. Okay. Also, you can add multiple arrows when you're dealing with the conditional start. So if this runs, we're going to run here, and we're also going to run here. Okay, we can do this. Also with the start, we can do as well. Okay, we can start this and go here as well. Okay, don't forget this. Sometimes this is helpful. Okay, so let me just fix the issue that we have here. So right now we don't have any data, any fields to add logic here. So right now I'm just gonna set true, okay, just to remove the error. But at least right now, I think we have our process covered, and we need to see and to create the front end, so the screens, and also a database in order to do this correctly. Okay. Okay. So far so good. Regarding our process, at least right now we have in a good spot. We are in a good. We developed a lot. So we need to cover two things more. So the front end and the database. So let's start with the database. So in order to not have cyclic references and something like that in your project, okay? So let's do things correctly. So let's create a new app from scratch. And let's create as well a reactive app. So here, let's say core database. Okay, also here we can set the naming correctly when dealing with core services and database and so on. So let's say here like client CS. Okay, that's the suffix, that's the naming convention that we use. So client CS. Okay. And here I think we can use as service because we are just going to use the data tab and the logic tab. Okay, so I think we can use this as a service. So let's try it on. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, we can create the database and also can create server actions. Yeah, so that's fine. So let's start here. So let's create our client table. So let's set name, age. Let's set here the so we can create as two forms. So the personal info. Okay, so the personal info, and so let's say country. No, let's not use country. Let's just use location. This is just test case, but in your application you can use, in your project you can use country or city or something like that. Okay, so for the clients that's okay. So far so good. Also we can create a client proposal, okay, to not have the same here in the client. So client proposal, let's say proposal amount. Okay. If you have any doubts regarding database, please add it in the comments. I can answer your questions. So let's say proposal amount. Let's say proposal amount, and let's see. So we can also use the status, but not right now. So also let's use the proposal date. So when it was sent a proposal. So let's say proposal date time. Okay. And let's use like, so proposal amount. Let's use these two. Also forgot to mention that when dealing with creating the tables, we need to create the control fields, so which are the created at. Okay. So when the record was created, also when the record was updated. We set also the is active if the record is active. Who created the client, so created by, and also the updated by, so who updated the client. Okay, so far so good. So let me just add the foreign keys to the top, and in the client proposal, let's create a new static entity. Static is the ones that we know that we for sure we know the ones that we want to deal with, and do not want to turn these dynamically in our app. So it's only created here manually. So let's say client status, okay, or client proposal status. It's more accurate like this. So we can create approved, we can create rejected, done, filled in, yeah, we can create like this, filled in. Also we need the last one, which is the waiting. So waiting is when the client didn't fill the proposal yet. So is in here. So when we're going to launch the process, the first status that we're going to have is waiting for the client proposal. So let's change this. So let's use like client proposal onboarding. I think it's better. Okay. And here also change the validate proposal onboarding info. And in here, so in the static entities, we have the ID of the record, the label ordering is active, We're not going to change this. Okay. And now we're going to create the foreign key, which is the client proposal status ID. Okay, this is going to tell us how it is the proposal. Okay. Also, let me add this. In this case, I'm not going to use the is active because no. Yeah, maybe I need, because when it is done, we can change to false and it is not active, because we already, if he can be onboarded, so it is done. We want to turn it as inactive because he is already um, in the as a client. He's a client already, and if it is rejected and nothing happens after that, we can turn this as inactive as well. Okay. So in this case, the proposal date time, it will be the created at. Okay. So when it was the proposal made, in which date time. And also we have our status, just to make sure that we know which step we are in the journey. Okay. So after this, we need to cover the tables from the BPT, from the processes. So these tables are in the system, which is supported by Outsystems. We have the two main tables. The first one is process. So this is the table, the main table, that when we create a process, we can see how is that process going, okay, all his information. And also we have activity. The activity is every activity that runs in each process that we have in our application, in our environment, in all. We can see all here in the activity and also in the process. Do you see this as red? Because we are displaying the tenant ID. Okay, that's why. Tenant ID is the tenant, or let's say the client that we have for each let's say project inside the application. Okay, so we can also create an application that works with several tenants. So imagine that we have a company that sells a lot of products um, for different tenants, and those tenants want to have separate things like different front end, different functionality, something like that. So in order to do that, we do not create several apps. We just create one, and we deal with the tenants. Okay, that's all we do. But this is a conversation for different times, not now. Okay. So let's apply. So let's consume the activity and also the process, and let's see what this does. So after that, so let's publish. Sorry, I forgot also to publish the process. So let's publish this as well. So let's publish the sync, and let's publish the CS. Okay, so it is almost done. Almost done. Okay. So in the activity, we can see all activities that we have in each process. And this works like this. So we have the tenant ID, already told you what it is. The identifier, the activity definition, this is the activity detail that we have. This is a different table. The activity, it is in a process, so that's why we have this. I have a foreign key with a process ID. This is the name. The user ID is the user that is responsible for this activity. Okay. When it was created, when it was opened, when it was closed. This is the activity status. So this is the the field that shows when the activity is running. So we have like automatic activities that runs really fast. So we are supposed to have like in between dates the running at or I think it was the running since and closed. Yeah, I think it is the running since and closed and also the created. For the packed activities, we have not a big time difference, but like human activities and wait, this is a bigger difference because it is things that we have like timeouts and we have like close on functions that depends on some human intervention also for the human activity. So just to make the things understandable here. Okay. Running at, I don't remember this. So the next run is the when the system will try to run this activity again. So why? So when we have data here, so when this field is filled in, when something happens in the activity. So sometimes the activity has some errors, and by default, Outsystems, what it does in terms of the BPT, he tries to run several times to see if can end or to finish that activity. So the next one it is filled when something happens. So when you have an error in the activity, and he adds some, so he creates a new date time, and he will try to run and to close on that date time. Okay. Very important here. So the precedent activity ID is the activity precedent from the one that we are dealing with. So in this case, so let's say that we are working with this one, the precedent will be this one. Okay. So why this is important? Sometimes we need to understand where this is on. Okay. But this is just this is a simple process. We have processes that are really, really big, like with 20, 30, 40 activities. Okay. And it is very useful just to understand what is the activity kind, if it is a human activity, if it is a decision, it depends on many things. Okay. Precedent outcome. So the precedent outcome, it's something like this. So if it was rejected, if it was approved, it depends. Do that, I don't remember this. If it was expired in boss data, I don't remember this for sure because I didn't touching this. At least I have 6 years of experience and I worked with processes like 5 years at least, and I never worked with this. If it is expired, if it is skipped, so the error count is something related to the next run. So the error count is when we have over and over again errors, and this will increment. Okay, so the default value is 0. That's easy because we also work with integers, so the default we have 0. And if we have an error, he will increment 0 plus 1, 1 plus 1, and so on. Last error ID, last modified, and the group ID. So the group ID works like have a specific group, or to have a group that works with this type of activities. At least as long I worked with processes, I never worked with this, but I know someone that worked. It depends on the requirements, but in this tutorial, we're not going to cover this. Okay. So let's move on to the process. Process is also a red one. We also have displayed the tenant ID. we have the ID, we have the process label, when it was created, who created the process. Process definition, I think this is something like the activity definition. It's in more detail what is the activity that we are working on. So the parent process ID, this is very important. So the parent process ID, this is filled in when we have a parent to the process record that we are on. So let's see this. So imagine that we are on the final validation. If we run this process will have a parent ID, which is the onboarding client, because this process only runs, at least now, only runs inside this parent, inside, let's say, the father, and the father is this process. So have the father, which is the parent onboarding client, and the children is the final validation. So in this case, we're going to have a parent process ID for this one, but for this one, we're not going to have that. It will be empty. Also, we have the parent activity ID. It works something like that, the same way. The top process ID, I think the top process ID is when we have, so let's say we have the onboarding, we have the process, and inside this process, we have another process. And that process that we create, the top process ID, which will be the onboarding client, because it depends on the top one. Okay? It depends, or it has all the historic. Okay? So the status ID, the process stats that we have, this is also a different table. The last modified, who last modified it, with which person. If it is suspended, then who suspended it. Okay? So this is the main tables that we have in the processes. Okay? So just to finish this, so let's create our last table, and let's say so let's say proposal process. So in the proposal process, we're going to have the oh wait, so we have the client proposal. Yeah. So in this case, the idea on the client proposal, okay, so if we can do this two ways. So we can make sure just one client can create one proposal, or we can have different proposal for the same client. Okay, so but I think I'm going to create that. So let's create a client ID here as a foreign key and not a one-to-one. And so what I'm doing here is to make sure that we can create different and several client proposals for the same client ID. Okay, so let's imagine that we create so the client creates a proposal and something happens. He can create one after all, just to make so something that we can work it out. So imagine that it was like 6 months after the first one that he created, so he can create a new one, so that's okay. So we can create like this, and also here we can create a proposal process that will have the client proposal ID, okay, and we'll have the process ID, okay. So what this will do, so in here we're gonna have the client proposal ID, which has the client ID, and also where that process ID belongs to, or that proposal in which process ID he belongs to. That's what we need to cover here. So when we create the proposal, we need to make sure that we add a record here to do the bridge from the proposal and the process ID that he is associated with. Okay, so That's all here. In terms of the database, I guess we covered everything, but these might change. We don't know. But for now, it's everything. So let's publish. Now let's create our CRUD actions. So let's create the client. So let me set the folder name to client CRUD. Here, let's set as client create or update. For this one, I'm just gonna create create or update. I'm not gonna add the delete. So let's continue. Also, let me change these to public because we need to use them in upward modules. So let's create also for the client proposal and also for the proposal process. So proposal process, yeah, that's fine. So the way that I like to create the CRUD, okay, we have many ways to do it. So regarding the client, what I like to do is first we need to create a validation just to make sure that we have all values set. So validation. And also we need to have some mandatory fields. So just like the name, also age and also the location. So we're going to set these 3 fields as mandatory. Also, we can also use as the created by, but this will be the from the CS. So the user will not have that field to fill in, and also the create that. Okay. So the client proposal, we need to have a client ID. We need also to have a client proposal status. Also the created by. Also the proposal amount and the proposal date time. Okay. For the proposal process, we need to have both of them. So a process ID and client proposal identifier. Okay, so regarding the validation, so let's create the validation for the client. So validate client data. So in here, what I like to do is to send specific information that we need to create a record and not the whole record. Okay, so you're going to send name, age, and location, and also we need to send the user identifier in order to associate the created by here. Okay, and I do this in here because it depends on the module that I'm gonna use it. So imagine that we set this on a timer or on a process. I don't know if you know this, but we do not have access to the get user ID, which is the function from Outsystems. So we need to use this and to make sure that when we set the get user ID or any type of user ID, we know for sure that depending on the module and the element that we are using, we have explicitly the user identifier, so it's not empty. Okay. Okay, so here, so far so good. Also, we need to set the values here. Okay, so let's test. So let's validate this. So we have the name. So the name must be different than null test identifier. Okay. Also, we need to have age. So the age must be higher or equal to 18. No, it's the opposite. No. This is text. So I forgot that. So let me change to integer. Okay. And in here, let me just use this one. I need also to change. Let me just copy and paste here. I think it's easier. And, yeah, because the data type it wasn't the integer, but now it is. Okay, so let's move on. So now the location must be different than null identifier. No, this is not, sorry, it's not null identifier, it's null text identifier, because this is for the text, not IDs. Also here and here we use the user ID identifier, but now we use the null identifier because the user ID is an identifier, it's not a text. Okay, so after this we can create site properties in order to, in a real project, we can just quickly change the text on the service center. Okay, so let's say name invalid. Okay, and here we can say like name must be filled in. Okay, and if we have the also I need to create here a error message which will have the message that we are creating, and also if it is valid. Okay, if it is not valid we set as false, if it is we set as true. Okay, so we need to do an assign here in order to populate the output parameters. So in here we set the valid as false. Yeah, exactly. And the error message we set as the site property name that we created, which is the name invalid. Okay, so if then the null test identifier, sorry, it's not it is equal, sorry, if it is null we go here. Here let me just change this. It's, yeah, location it is equal, and now the no identifier user ID is this one. Okay, so if it is valid is false and our message site name invalid. Yeah, so far so good. So after that we need to check the next one. Also we need to use a new assign. Okay, right now we need to so add a new string here. So what we need to do is to add the error message, because we might have our error message above in here or not. If it is not, we just send empty, so it's okay. And now we need to send the Also, let me just add like this just to have a separation, and like this. Yeah. Also, let's create age invalid, and here we set the value as, so we're going to have the error message. Imagine that we have error message here, which is the name invalid, plus if the age is not higher or equal to 18. So we are adding the error message to have a full error message here. So after that, we need to check the location. In here, we need also to create one for the location. So location invalid. So let's add this. Yeah. And let's create a new one for the user. So user ID invalid. But this is for us because this is our fault if something happens regarding the user ID. So here, let's say user identify user is empty. Okay. So regarding the name, we can set this also for the location. This is for the user. Location, and for the age, we set as this. So far so good. And let's just finish our sequence here. So the assign here, it will be regarding the user ID invalid, and if everything is okay, we just send as valid true. Okay, so valid equal true. Okay, so let's move on here. So for validated client, we have it all. So just drag and drop this. Now we need to fill in this because these are input parameters. So the name will be the input parameter, location the same, the user identifier will be the user identifier, and we have the age. Okay, so far so good. So after that, we need to check. Okay, so we need to check the if the client exists. Also, we need to send the client ID. Okay, and here, let me just try to drag and drop this. Yeah, that's it. So here we can just set as max record as 1 because we just hope to have one. We are just expecting to have one record here. So this is for optimizing purpose. And here we have the client ID. It equals to the client ID that we are trying to get. Okay. Also, I forgot to do something here, so my mistake. So after we set the validated client data, we need to check if it is valid. So if it is valid, we just continue the normal flow. If it is not, we need to raise an exception. Okay, so let's set here. I'm not sure. I like login. Okay, so let's create a exception handler just to have a better name here. So client data not valid. Okay, and here we set the client data not valid, and the exception will be, it's not this, sorry. Exception will be the error message that we are populating inside the action. Okay, so here we can just change this to valid. So if it is valid, we continue. If it is not, we raise an exception. Okay, and here, if it is okay, we check. And why we check? We check in order to make sure that we need to create or update the record. Okay. So if this is empty, so it means that we do not have that client ID, so we need to create. Okay. No client found. If no client found, we need to add the create. So we need to create a client. The source, we can send the client, but in order just to make sure that we have the information correct, we need to change the aggregate. So because right now we don't have anything. Okay. So the user ID will be null identifier, so we do not need to add anything here, but we need to send here the created by, which will be the same as user ID, not the get user ID, because if you use the get user ID and we call, for example, from a process, that element doesn't have the get user ID, okay, or a timer. So we need to send the user ID, and the upload module will do the job to make sure that this input parameter has value. Okay, so we send the user identifier. So next, here we are creating, so we're not updating, so we're not going to use this one. So the name is the one that we're sending for the input parameter. The age is the age. The location, the location is the location. And the created at, now we can use the current date time. So current date time. And to finish, we need to set it as is active. So true. And after that, we just send this as expected. Also, we can send the client identifier output, just to make sure that it was successful. Okay, so I don't think he didn't understand what is this, so let me change the client identifier. So now he will understand. Yeah, so it is the CRUD ID that will be created. Also, let me just change this to created data. And let's change this in here to the false flow. And then let's change from created to updated, or to updated. So the create client it will not be the create client, it will be the update client, because here we are updating it. And here we just need to send the client ID, because we found it, and we just need to send it just to make sure that is okay. Okay, so here we need also to use this. We no longer we are not creating, we are updating it. Okay, so we need to change to update, and here we need to change also to update. Okay, so far so good. And we can also change here to public, because we are going to use in the upload modules. Okay, so let's continue for the other CRUD table. Okay, so now for the client proposal. So let's create here. We can just copy and paste this one and just change some things. Client proposal. here we need to send the client proposal ID. So let's change this. So client proposal identifier. Okay. Also, we need to send the client identifier. These. Yeah, that's all. So we need to send all that. So the client identifier that will be associated, the status, proposal amount, and proposal date time. Okay. Okay. So regarding the client proposal status, the first status that we're going to have will be filled in. No. Yeah. It will be filled in. Yeah. We can just set that on the mapping on the form when we are trying to create a proposal. So that's enough. So here we need to create as well for the validate client proposal. Okay. So what we need to have is all that. Yeah, that's all that. And here we can just copy and paste. And now we need to create the site properties. So let's create 4 of them. So now we have the first one for the client invalid. So client is empty. Next, we have the client proposal status ID. So let's just say, yeah, proposal invalid. Here, change to text, and we set as client proposal status is empty. Now let's set the proposal amount and the date time. So the proposal amount we need to set as, so proposal amount cannot be lower must be higher than 0. And also for the date, proposal date invalid. I think it is proposal date, right? So it is proposal date time, yeah, it's the same. So proposal date, let's just say that proposal date is empty. Okay. So far so good. So let's go here and let's update this. So the client identifier, if it is no identifier, we send the site client invalid. That's good. If it is the client proposal status, we send to sorry. So this must go to the site property. This proposal amount must be higher than 0. oh, sorry, if it is lower or equal to 0, because we are sending to true. And also to change this to the amount. And in here we update to the date time. So if it is null date time, null date, we go here as well. So the side property will go to get the proposal date invalid. Yeah. And if it is everything okay, we just send as that. Oh, this is not the proposal amount, sorry. This is the site amount invalid. Yeah. Okay, so far so good. So instead of using this, we're gonna use this one, and we just need to map with the input parameters. Okay. I like to have the same space between elements. Okay. So here the invalids will go to this, the error message will go to this one, which is the output. So here we're not going to use the client identifier. We need to use the client proposal. Okay. We are just expecting to have one for each client, at least for this test case, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Also, I think I forgot to use the, no, it's here, yeah. So the client proposal identifier, it will be the same as this. So if the no client proposal, if no client proposal found, so go to the true. Here we need to change this to created by. We need also to add the user ID. It will be the same here. Just one thing, don't forget to add description. I'm not going to do that, but don't forget to do that, because it is important for your teammates and the colleagues that you are working on and other people that come up that can start in your project. Okay, just to give you this heads up and just to make sure that you add the description. Okay, so now let's move to the client ID. So the client ID, it will be the client ID input parameter, the client proposal status, and I think, okay, we need also to add the proposal amount. I think we just have two more. Yeah, the date time, it will be the current date time. Yeah, it's wait. Yeah, so the proposal date time here, we don't need that because we are just gonna get the current date time from the Outsystems function, and here we just need to send the is active. Okay. So here we are not gonna add the, it's not the client create client, it is the create client proposal, and the current is the current one that we have here. And now we need to send with output the client proposal identifier. And now we go here, we change, I need to add output, and for the create, that's it. So after that, we need to set the updated by. Also, let me just do a smart thing here. Just copy and paste this. It's much easier. Here we're going to change to updated. here we send the updated by, and here is the same because we need to update the proposal datetime, so it's all fine. Here we need to send the update client proposal, and also to use the current records that we have in our aggregate. And here we need to, just to finish, we need to send the output parameter. Okay, so let me just see what we have here. So proposal date time. Okay, yeah. So the proposal date time, we don't need that. Sorry about that. So just remove that field because we have that. We just need to send the current date time. Here, let me just remove as well the input parameter, and also here. Okay, so now it's all valid, it's true change, so no warnings, no errors. And to finish, we have also the proposal process. Okay, and here we need to guarantee that we have both of these, so let's do that as well. Okay, so let me just copy and paste this, but now for the proposal process. Here we need to send both of these as input parameter. So far so good. Here we're gonna need two validations, one for client proposal. So client proposal, if it is equal to null identifier, and process ID equal to null identifier. Okay, so far so good. So let's create just two new site properties here. So the first one, it will be proposal invalid, and the other one, it will be the process invalid. Here we change the client to process is empty, and here proposal is empty. Okay, this is very important just to make sure that we do the correct validations. Okay, to not have any database error when trying to create or update. So in here we are checking the proposal, and in here we need to send the process. Okay, so we have a warning, so we have, okay, so this must be public, and now we can create our CRUD for the proposal process. Okay, so here we send these two. We don't need here to use the user identifier, so yeah, that's it. We can just change these as proposal process, and for this case we just expect to create, we're not gonna update anything, so we just need the happy path, so only the create, so we can remove the update. It depends on the table that you have, but in this case I'm not expecting to update this. When we create, that's it. So let's remove this. This one we need to change as well. So we need to get our validate proposal process, and this is not public. Yeah, because this is just gonna be used in here in this module. Okay. So the client proposal ID, it will be this one. Process identifier, it will be this one. So the valid one, it will be from the output parameter, and we need to send as well the error message. So to make sure that we have this proper, we can just send here. No, wait. Yeah. For this we don't need to check anything because we are checking here, so we don't need to see if it is valid or not in here, if we found or not, because we are just expecting to create. So here we are just gonna create. So create the data, and this is, we are getting the incorrect table, so we need to change that. So let's change to proposal process. Okay, so proposal process, just to get the data instead of creating a record here with the value that you have here. You're just sending the aggregate. Okay, so here we need to send the client proposal identifier, also the process identifier, and yeah, that's it. Here we can just delete these ones, and here we need to get the create proposal process, and we need to send as well the output parameter, which is the one that we just end up creating it. And that's it. Regarding the create actions, I think we are all set. If something happens, so we need to change something, just it will be just slightly changed, so it is very good at the moment. Okay, so now we have our database and processes done. So we need to focus now on the front-end part. So in order to display the form, in order the client to start the proposal here. So the way that we do this is first try to understand our process, and based on the process we create all the journey in the front end. Okay, of course this depends on your application requisites, on your demands, but most of the applications we do like this. So if you do not have any design person that does this, so we need to figure it out and try to understand how we can display this. Okay, so we need to create the process before we we set, so we let the client to send the proposal. Okay, so just make this understandable. So we start the process. After that we have our first human activity, which is the client proposal. Okay, so in order to create the front ends, we need to create a new application. So let's create reactive, and here let's set as client proposal, create that, and here it is a front end, so we really need to use as reactive web application. Okay, so client proposal, let's create. Let me just publish. Before that, let me just remove unused dependencies. Outsystems always does this, so we have 432 dependencies that were removed because they were not being used. So why we do this? In order to not have a heavy module. Also, I'm gonna do the same for the processes. Perhaps here we have less because they are not reactive modules. And also for the CS, I think we have 15 only for the reactive and blank one. The um, blank modules we have the most because it contains widgets and so on, but we are not using. And also system actions that we don't need, at least now. Okay, so here we can create a screen. So let's say here client proposal. Okay, so let's create the screen. Here we can create blocks and so on, but here I'm just gonna do a quick thing here, just to show you how this works. So now we need to get the client CS in order to create the proposal. We need to get the tables. So let's get everything. Okay, so we need to create a client proposal. And here we can have, let's say, two forms. No, only one form, sorry. We are just gonna get one form. Actually, we can do a much quicker thing. We can just get the client proposal and just copy and paste here. Okay, we can create this table, list, and so on. Or we can, instead of creating this, we can just go here. Let me just remove this. We can go to the main flow and just drag and drop the table, okay? This is a shortcut. So what he will do is to create the client proposal list or table list with the details, okay? So if you go here, we can see that we have two new screens. So the client proposal, which has the table list, and also we have the detail, okay? This is just a quick thing that you can use in your application. Okay. If we don't want to create like this, we need to do it step by step. But after you do the shortcut, you can also go to the main content and see what it does, and you can change as well the widgets and the logic that we have here. Okay. But for now, I'm gonna use this because this course or this tutorial, it's not about how to create tables or how to create blocks and so on. This is really directed to BPT, to business process technology. So I'm not going to cover everything here and explain everything that we have so far here by this shortcut. So please, if you want to learn this, you can go to Outsystems and try to check the guided paths for the regarding this. So the tables and how to create screens and so on. This is most focused on the BPT. Okay. So after this, we can see here that we have our client and we have our client proposal status, if it is approved, reject, and so on. Also, by default, he created the pagination and the number of the items that we have. We have a search to search on the table and add the client proposal. Okay, so if you click twice here, we go to the client proposal detail. So we can create or we can edit the client. Okay, so what we have here, so we have the client proposal status, have proposal amount, and we have proposal data time. So the client here, I'm not sure why he set it. I know why. So he set it as drop down because it is a foreign key with the identifier. That's why. Also, he did the same here. So it is a foreign key with an identifier. Okay, but here we are not expecting to have a drop down, or we can have, yeah, it's okay, we can have, we can create the clients and do the drop down and just check. That is fine, we can do that as well, but it's not mandatory to have like this. You can change these. Okay, so here we have a drop down, here we have the status, it's okay. We have the proposal amount, but the proposal date time, we are doing this on the CRUD, so we are mapping on the CRUD, so we don't need that. We can just remove it. And also the data that we are doing on the CRUD as well, so let's remove it as well, and also the is active. Okay, so now we have the client proposal status, and proposal amount. Okay, so let's check our client proposal. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. So now we have these all covered regarding the client proposal. But now if we publish this, let's publish. If we publish this, we cannot create a client proposal because we do not have any client, correct? And as we know, the client ID foreign key is mandatory. So we can create the same here. So drag and drop a client list, the client table, and do the same. Or a simple way, we can just go here in the client and create a class. So we can add a row here. So in your real application, you're not going to do this. But here, as a test case, I'm going to do that because it's quicker. Okay. So if we add the row, we have set the ID. It will be auto-numbered, so we're not going to set this. So the created by, we need to check our user table. So let's check that. So we have our user ID, which is the 10. So let's use the 10. So here we set as 10. Updated by it, we do not have anything. So let's set here the client. Let's say I don't know, widow, just like this. So the age of the client, let's say 19. Location we can set as Lisbon, Portugal. Okay. Created that, it's the let's set as 250101, and it is active. So let's try to see if it works. Okay, so far so good. We have now in our table our first client, and now we need to create a proposal. Okay, and after we create the proposal, or after not, in the same moment, we need to create the proposal process. Okay, because when we create the proposal, no, in fact we need to create, yeah, so by here we need to create the proposal only after the process runs, but our database doesn't say that, so we need first to create the proposal. So one way to do this is to do the client proposal before we start the process. Okay, so my idea is to go here, no, here, and when we create the proposal, we launch the process. Okay, so instead of having this step, we do this step before we start the process. So let's remove this, and after that, oh, I have one idea. So instead of having this here, we can just remove here, and we go right away to here. Why? So let me explain. Let me just put this here. So when we start the case, the process, we change the status to filled in. Okay. After that, we validate the proposal. If it is not okay, so if it is rejected, we update to rejected, and after that we let again the client to onboard the proposal. Okay, so imagine that we could have a comment field here, just saying that let's say the manager or the person that will check the case, the proposal, doesn't like something, so he says, oh, the proposal is too low, so change it. So that could be a comment, just to make sure that the client understands. And after that we reject, and after that the proposal needs to change the form. This is just an example, okay? And after that it is again updated. We change again to case filled in order again to the person that will be responsible to check this. He will validate again. Okay, makes sense? Okay, so after we change this, so let me publish again. Sorry, let me publish. Oh, yeah. And now, so after this, we can go here and make sure that our save does exactly that. Okay, so let's check. So we have here form1 valid. Let me just change the name here. So form client proposal. So we have is mandatory, this is incorrect, this is true. Here the drop down, it will be client. Here the status, it's not set here because we need to update as well here. So let me cover this. Or before that, we can go here, and when we save here, we just set right away the status. So we don't need that. Okay, so let me remove. So by default, when we run that, so if it is valid, when we go here, if it is not, we set as warning and say like, please fill the mandatory fields. Okay, that's fine. Client proposal valid. Okay, if it is valid, we remove this, and or we can just send success and we change to client proposal created successfully. Okay, and now we need to get the client proposal. Yes, so let me get the client proposal creator update. So the client proposal identifier here, we can send the input parameter, but the first time that we're going to create it, this will be null identifier because we don't have anything. So the client ID, it will be the client ID that we are using here. It will be this one. The client proposal status we will send as filled in, because we are filling in the, so if it is filled in already when the customer or the client fills the form, the proposal amount is the one that we have on the form, and the user identifier, it will be the get user ID. So do you understand now? We are on the front end and we have control on what we're going to send here. And on the front end, the get user ID has always a value because we are logged in and we are not using a timer or process, okay? Directly, so we are creating here. So this makes sense. So if it is okay, we send here and that's fine. So here, let me just remove this aggregate because we are not using that input for the status anymore. And now, after we get that, we go here and we check the record that we created. So let me just make sure that it's everything ready. I guess so, but we need to test. So let's publish. We need always to test and test well. But here we just have two inputs, so we don't have much more to, we have a lot to test. So let me open the browser here. Okay, so I'm now logged in. As we can see, we don't have anything on the table because we don't have anything created. So let's add a client proposal. So as you can see, we have the window client. That's the one that we created on the table. And also we need to set the amount. If you click save without setting it, so we need to fill the amount field. So let's say 19,000 and let's see if it works. Okay, so now we can see that we have our client proposal created. Let's see. Yeah, we have here, and also we can hit back and it is working. We also can check here the client proposal. Yeah, we have here, but the only thing that is not working is the process. We did not started the process yet, okay? But we can do that. So in order to do this, we can just send or to launch the process very easily by using the launch one, okay? But as you can see, we don't have any tables here. Why? Because we need to set it here in the tables. So when you go to the client proposal, we go to the edit entity, and we go to here to the more options, and we can set as expose process events. If we set as this, we can go back here in the process and use the launch on as the create or update. But we need to publish first. Don't forget this. This is a way to launch the process, okay? So let's publish. Okay, so now let's refresh. And let's go here to the launch on. Okay, I think it's because also we are not getting the tables. So we need to get the tables. So in this case, we just need the client proposal. And if you go here, now we have. Oh, my mistake. We only have the client, the create, not the update. So if we set as this will be launched. So we're going to start a process when we are creating a client proposal, okay? So the onboarding client, let me just get here description. So onboarding client, process. Okay. And user information, onboarding clients. Yeah, that's fine. So let's publish. Because we created this without launching the process, I'm just gonna delete this. We can also delete in the table. So just go here and click apply. Now it is published, and our client proposal, it's ready. So let's go back here. Let me refresh. So let's add the client proposal. We're going to send to window. And now let's set as 13,000 and let's click save. Okay, so client proposal created successfully. So after this, what happens is in the background, in asynchronous, he will run the process, and here in the front end, we can continue doing what we need to do in the app without compromising what happens in the process and vice versa. Okay. So now let's go here in the process and check if the process was created. So as you can see, we have here our process. It is this one. Okay. So let's see. We don't have the label. Let me see. Yeah. So we don't have any kind of way to understand which process is this. What process is this? But let me try to do a query here with the process and also the process definition. So let me get the process definition. Yeah, let me get this one and try to do a join and try to get more data here, more details. So let me just publish first. I need to publish in order to check the data that we have in our query. I cannot publish, sorry. So let me just disable this and publish. It will work. Sorry, it will work as this was inside a flow in terms of the preview data that we need to check here. So it is now published. So let me enable. Okay, so right now we have here our data. So let me add a source by process ID from descending in order to see the one that we have. So let's see what information that we have here. So as you can see, now we have the onboarding client. That's the one that we have here, onboarding client. Okay. So just to make sure that we are running that. I also have the label, the description, onboarding client process. So we have this here. Let me see if we have more information here that is relevant. So it is active. Okay. Yeah. That's the process entity is the I guess. Let me see. So let me see what process definition. What is this? Let me check. Yeah, exactly. So that's the entity identifier that launch this process. So in this case, it's a client proposal, and the ID for some case it's 1176. That's the ID of the entity. Okay. So you might be wondering, so what is this? So sync mod status and app changed. So in our environment, I'm using a personal environment. So what happens, Outsystems does by default processes and other things that runs in background in order to have our environment in a good place. And what he does is to run processes in order to do some updates and um, understand if everything is okay here in the environment. Don't forget the process, and also the activity. Also, the activity holds every records on your environment. It's not related to the process or any module. It's the entire environment. It's everything here. Okay. It's one table for the many processes that you have running on your environment. Okay. And also the activities. So we can also open here the activity, and we can see that we have, let's see, so we have, so created process status. We should have at least this one because we created that. So let me check. I'm not sure if we have the activity name here, if it is exactly that one, but let me check. Yeah, we have. Okay. So do you see? We have here already 14,000 activity IDs. We also have the one that we run, and the process is for sure here. Okay. Also, we can see the case, the process, using the BAM reports and also using the service center. Okay. But I'm not going to cover this at the moment. Okay. But later in the tutorial, I'll show you. Okay, so far so good. We created our client proposal and our process, and right now it is here. So next, what we need to do is to create a new user, okay, with a new role that will cover this part. So he needs to check this, okay. Also, we need to create. So let's say here it is the recruiter. So here it is the recruiter, the role. Here we need to create a new role, which is the manager. Okay. And here this is a different beast that we're going to handle here. So right now we just need two roles. Okay. So the manager and also the recruiter. Okay. Also, I can change this, validate recruiter proposal, just to make sure that which one we're going to set here. Also, we have the user. We can set specifically which user, and only that user can continue this activity. You can also do that, but we're not gonna do that, at least with me in this tutorial. But if you have any questions or any doubts how to use that or the destination and so on, you can just comment below and add comments, and I can create or extend the tutorial with one more video and just to show you how that works. Okay. And we reached the end of part 1. Okay. So in the next part, I'm gonna show you start to end the process, and I'm gonna cover all the elements that we have in the process, like waitings and so on, how we can work with them, also conditional starts, and the BAM. So how we are going on the process, which step we are, and so on. So in the second part, I'm going to create more front end, and we can also end the process with a conditional start. We're going to update the status. We're going to have the BAM process that will be here. We're going to create a new screen for this, and here we're going to check how we are on the process. Okay. And also regarding the PPT, we're going to cover everything in the final validation, working with the waiting, updating the status, and everything. Okay. So if you want to see the full tutorial, please check the comment below that I added, which I created a full course with this in Udemy. Okay, so it is for a cheap price. So please, if you are really into this and you really need to learn, so please go dive in the course, and I'll see you in the class. Okay, thank you so much. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.